Hello and good afternoon and good morning to everybody. Welcome to our show today. We're going to have an amazing discussion around ISO 27001 with Bindplane and Tony Ramos. Before I dive in, a quick introduction to me. My name is Kahale. I'm the Global Director of Solutions Engineering here at Eru. I've been with the company for about 5 years. Prior to that, I come from an admin background managing a fleet of devices across many verticals. Let me pass it off to my counterpart today, Tony.
Thank you for the intro. My name is Tony Ramos. I'm the security manager over at Bindplane. So I'm running our GRC program and making sure that our endpoints are as secure as possible. I've spent the last 10 or so years in the cloud space specifically. So that has involved both cloud architecture, endpoint management, IAM, things like that. Currently in my career, I've been focusing pretty heavily on the AppSec side. So I've been helping make sure that Bindplane's open telemetry collectors are as secure as possible and making sure that we're providing that same level of security to our customers.
Tony, I'm curious as it pertains to Bindplane, where was it from a security standpoint and compliance standpoint before ISO?
One of the really beautiful things about Bindplane is I truly believe that we hire the best engineers in the world at solving the problems that we're trying to solve. So from Bindplane's perspective, when I joined the team, they already had a SOC 2 compliant posture. The organization was very familiar with all of the constraints that are involved in having regulatory overhead. And because of that, the team builds security by default. So every single time we're having a conversation on how to build something, security is first and foremost. And that is a side effect of the fact that we are in some of the largest corporations in the world. We're in many Fortune 500 companies. We're in banks and hospitals and POS systems all over the world. So everything that we make carries a lot of risk, and our engineers really respect that.
You guys decided to go after the ISO 27001. What was the mindset going in? And what were the principles that you were anchoring the whole program around?
Our true belief is that we don't care to play the compliance theater game, right? If we're going to enforce procedures and policies on our customers and our users, we want to make sure that it's something that actually benefits everybody for the time commitment that's putting in. So we take a lot of time to design and operationally test our controls before introducing them. It is very much not the framework says to do this, so we're going to do it to check the box. We really think holistically on how the guidance would apply to our organization, and that's what we implement. So evidence collection, for instance, is something that can take up a lot of time. It can be very intensive in regards to labor from our employees. And the more time that they spend helping me collect evidence, the less time they're able to spend building the great things that we hired them to do. So evidence collection being as automated as possible and only introducing controls that we can operationally enforce every single day are our two primary philosophies.
What would you say stood out between those two philosophies to you?
It was surprisingly easy to accomplish, right? We had all of these great things. We had a lot of scanners. We had a lot of licenses to tools that allowed us to get the level of visibility we need. And we're an observability company. So if there's a log that gets emitted that says that something happened, we can grab it. And because of that, we were able to, every step of the way, design our environment in a way that I could go click a button, grab that log as evidence, and move forward. And at any given time, my CEO can jump in and make sure that we're compliant across the board. So we're able to take away a lot of the day-to-day management overhead that could be an hour-long meeting every single week by automating away a lot of the hard parts.
Tell us how you built the program. Like, I'd like to kind of hear where you started, what you leaned on, where that all kind of fell into place.
Yep. And so I'll start by saying I can't take all the credit, right? Like I said, we hire amazing engineers. We hire very senior principal level engineers that are very intuitive at designing these more complex environments. So if I needed support, I was able to reach out to the amazing team that we have. On top of that, we did have inherently to ISO an auditing firm that worked through our internal audits with us and helped us find any gaps before we got through the audit. So that is really where it all started for us is we took a look at all of the gaps that came out of our first stages of readiness and going into our internal audit. We looked at them with the lens of what are we already doing today? What can we do better on using the existing tools that we have? And what should we go procure to make this a little bit of an easier process?
And from all of that, what do you feel came together really easily? And what do you feel that maybe was a little bit harder to ascertain or come by or to gain?
Yeah. So To answer that best, I want to explain that we are a cloud native organization. So we don't have a data center in-house that we're, managing all of our servers from. So one of the complexities of that is we are globally distributed organization. Our endpoints are our biggest risk item. Making sure that no matter where my employees are in the world, they're as secure as possible is the biggest problem that we had to solve for overall.
Any areas that felt particularly exposed or difficult to solve for as you were going through your journey?
So two things that were ISO specific that we had to cover for were DNS filtering across our devices and enforcing the inability for our users to just copy whatever data that they want onto a random flash drive. Those are the two things that when we looked at our environment were some of the harder gaps to fill. From there, we were able to strategically pick things to apply and harden our environment from.
And those two things that were harder, like I'm curious, did that take you the longest time to be able to kind of work through, or how did that work out for you?
There is a world where that would have taken us the longest time, right? But because of the great resources your team was able to provide going through the support process and going through our initial engagement, those things ended up being a couple clicks of a button and reading some documents. So very, very big props to the amount of support that we were able to get on the IRU side from that.
How did you approach solving for that endpoint gap that you mentioned earlier?
So the first problem that I wanted to make sure we didn't run into is I didn't want my CEO to be on a call at 3 p.m. in the afternoon and get knocked off for some updates, right? So minimal disruption to our users was the first thing that we wanted to solve for. One thing that was really nice is coming from our previous MDM provider, we were able to bring our existing profiles and controls over into the platform. So we had a SOC 2 baseline immediately. We were able to align our gaps across our endpoints with profiles that already existed to an extent in Kanji. So we were evaluating the CIS profiles. We were looking at other baselines that we were able to collect. And by the time we applied all of the baselines that were immediately accessible, we only had those last two gaps that I had mentioned, being the storage media and the DNS filtering.
And then as far as the solution, once you've had it in place, what changed?
Almost nothing, right? So one thing that was really nice is once our devices were onboarded, we got the initial wave of this doesn't work exactly like how it did before. But because we spent so little time building out the actual profiles and architecting the posture portions of the controls, I was able to spend a lot more time listening to my employees on things that were impacting their workflow and tuning more accordingly. So we started off with just throw it in the Slack channel if you have a complaint. And we had very few complaints to start, and we were able to work through them complaint by complaint. I made that very easy because of the great support that you provide. Anytime employees had a problem, if I wasn't able to solve it with a couple clicks in the UI, I was able to reach out to Spore, and they were able to drive us forward.
And kind of staying on that endpoint discussion, how central was endpoint management decisions to you actually being successful overall with the program?
Yeah. So when you look at all the things that the auditors are looking for across our program, most of the things that we have to collect evidence from are specifically related to our endpoints and our employees' ability to do bad things across our environment. So because of our reliance on the platform, evidence collection was opening Prism and clicking export a couple times and showing some screenshots in there to our auditors. From there, it really opened up this door of continuous monitoring. Once everything was in place, I could jump in and prove to anybody internally that we were in a good spot.
That's awesome. Do you feel that Iru endpoints management, that desired end state, is really what was helping kind of drive that?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I guess now that you're certified, let's talk a little bit about life after certification. How are you feeling?
Great and terrified, right? We got through the first hard part, and now we got to make sure that all the things that we designed are working every single day. And for some companies, they're not thinking about that again until their surveillance audit is coming up, and now they've got to reevaluate their controls. For us, we're constantly looking at ways to improve, so we're always looking at the controls we have in place and how to develop them. Especially going back to the CIS benchmarks, for instance, because your team is constantly enhancing those and improving on your side, improvements on our side are very much a click of a button. If I want to enforce a higher baseline, I can go set up a pilot in a couple seconds in a new blueprint, apply that to my pilot group, and they're immediately hardened to wherever I'm trying to go.
Yeah, it sounds like you're feeling much better, but there's still things that keep you up at night.
Yes, absolutely. And I think in this world of AI tools and new agents running all over, the sleep is getting fewer and far between.
So at this point, are you comfortable and confident with the security posture and the day to day going forward with Bindplane and what you guys are doing as it pertains to your ISO certification?
Absolutely. There's always room for improvement, and that's true at any organization. But where we're at today, I'm very happy to be bringing on more customers every single day. I'm very excited for us to continue to push the boundaries on what OpenTelemetry is capable of every single day.
What producing audit evidence do you have today? And what does it look like in practice versus what you're expected, like what you're expecting to happen?
One thing that helps us a lot is we are fully a Mac shop, right? So in other places who use multiple MDM providers for different systems and need to really correlate their data, evidence collection could be going into a bunch of different systems, taking screenshots, looking at what the configuration in the device is here, look at the antivirus in this platform. But with Era, we've got everything unified. So because we're leading into vulnerability management, because we're leading into EDR, we're able to prove all of those controls without leaving the single system, which does save a lot of time on our operational overhead. Our team has pretty aggressive separation of duties. So in some worlds, we might have to go jump into different systems from different people who own that system and have them grab some screenshots. In this world, we don't have to do that. I'm able to go get all the evidence across the board pretty expeditiously.
You talked a little bit about the continuous compliance journey, like maybe a few minutes ago. I'd love to talk a little bit about that. Like, what does maintaining that posture look like, and how much effort do you expect yourself putting towards that now going forward?
Yes. So the most difficult part is keeping up on what's going on in the industry. We're in this funny space where a lot of our code is open source. Anybody could go take a look at it. And if there's something that we introduce, it impacts a very large breadth of our audience. So it really all starts with us clearly defining the risks that we're going to run into. Every organization who's going through ISO and SOC 2 has a risk register and a risk assessment methodology that they use to understand where they have to harden. And our organization performs very regular risk assessments and security assessments on the new functionality that we're introducing, new tools that we're bringing on, and so on. And every time we introduce something new, that comes with bringing on a new set of controls. So if I have a user who wants to install an application on their endpoints to do something that we're not fully prepared for, we'll do a full risk assessment on it. And we'll see what controls we have to add to our profiles to harden that further. We'll see what DLP rules we have to introduce to make sure that leakage is minimal.
I think that's kind of one of the things in my past that I had to deal with was more that continuous audit and making sure that, every year when the auditors came in, it was like, oh my God, here goes to your point. I think you mentioned this at the start of the call where you're trying to do a lot of time savings across your team. And that was one of the things I had struggled with was every time the internal auditor came every year, it was 2 to 3 weeks of my life just out of the window, right? Where you have to spend time, provide that evidence and so on and so forth. So I'm glad that you guys are thinking about the ongoing piece and making sure that you're removing some of that. What's changed or been added to your program since certification, and what have you done to maybe strengthen it since then?
Yes. So right now we're focusing on better improving our threat detection across the board. Moving forward with EDR was a start to that on our side, but that is very much where we're heads down on. The Axios breach happening yesterday is a good example of so many nested dependencies in every single tool. Every app we use nowadays is a Google Chrome wrapper. There's so much risk installing any application on our endpoints, and we need to be able to react very quickly.
Where would you say your compliance journey goes from here for Bindplane? What's next on the roadmap? What are you guys focused on? What are you excited about? What are you worried about?
Yeah. So today, literally, we are working through our SOC 2 Type 2 recertification. So we're going through audits, we're going through and collecting all of the evidence. As I said, we've pulled up your platform very many times to provide control evidence. After that, we're going to be working through FedRAMP high compliance. We're looking pretty good to continue moving through that process. And then at the end of the year, 1 year from our previous ISO audits, we go through our ISO surveillance audits again. So from there, we've got to go prove that everything that we said last year is still in place and that we're maintaining everything.
What would you do differently, or what would you double down on if you were going to go through this again?
That's a great question. So I think one thing that we could have probably saved a lot of time on was holistically understanding what we were going to look for from our endpoint protection perspective. So we started off with just thinking about MDM, right? MDM in our initial discussions was a very separate conversation from endpoint protection. We evaluated a number of services, we tested a whole bunch of things, and in the end, the thing that we did find was the best fit for us was the EDR on the hero side. So we could have saved a lot of time by doubling down on our investment in a single platform instead of really trying to broaden our depth. And that has definitely set us up to be in a good position for our future audits. Like I said, we have to look at one platform for evidence instead of many now.
What stood out to that made you say, yeah, this is the way we want to go. This feels like the right move here.
Yeah, so I have a team of incredible engineers, like I mentioned. So every time I introduce a new utility into our environment, the first thing they try and do is break it. And with some other platforms we introduced, we were able to get a little bit further than what we were anticipating. To date, I haven't had a single one of my engineers get past the EDR offering. So that is really what drove it for us. We are able to think like the attackers because of the amount of context we have in this space and try it out. And when we did, we weren't able to break the EDR on the hero side.
While this doesn't pertain to endpoint protection, it's something that keeps everyone up at night, like you mentioned, with regulators still offering limited guidance on AI best practices. What measures are you putting in place to establish responsible use among your users?
That is a great question. Thank you. So to begin covering it, so there are a number of frameworks that are popping up right now to provide governance over AI in general. So the framework that we've adopted because of our existing investment in ISO is ISO 42001. So our organization isn't certified against ISO 42001 now, but going into next year, we're looking at evaluating what we can do to align with the guidance as much as possible. So we're really going to use that as our baseline to establish a hardened AI posture. One of our primary philosophies with Bindplane is that you should own your entire data set. So we want to provide generative AI functionality without taking away from that. And that is a difficult thing to navigate right now. And our team is constantly looking at ways to minimize exposure to customer data while still providing as much generative AI functionality as possible.
Awesome. Thank you, Tony. This has been an amazing session where you allowed me to ask you some questions and really dive into what you guys are doing there at Bindplane as it pertains to your compliance frameworks. I really do appreciate you taking the time to chat here. Thank you to the audience for joining us today. It's been a pleasure to see you all again, and we look forward to our next session.